Welcome to Blueprint Boost for Contractors, the podcast that's your go-to source for unlocking the secrets to successful marketing, gaining valuable insights, and growing your contracting business with less stress. Your host is David Brooks, and he's thrilled to be your guide on this journey. As a seasoned expert in the contracting industry, David understands the challenges you face. That's why each episode is crafted to provide you with actionable strategies and proven blueprints to boost your business to new heights.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, David Brooks, powered by Contractor Rhino. We do have a guest with us for this episode, and I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Hey, morning, David. Appreciate it. Excited to be here. Appreciate it. Happy post Labor Day. I think we're all kind of getting back into things, but excited to have some time to talk to you this morning. I am Daniel McCaulley. I'm the founder of Ultimus Engineering, and we are a Plano, Texas-based, made in America engineering firm serving the construction industry. We serve the three disciplines of MEP engineering, aquatics, which is all things water and swimming pool related, and structural engineering.
Oh, nice to have you. Appreciate you joining the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, David.
Yeah, no problem. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you into founding the company, getting into engineering?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am an engineer myself, as nerdy as it gets. I have a professional engineering license and also a master's degree in mechanical engineering. But I didn't know that I always wanted to run a company, and I didn't know that I always wanted to be in the construction industry. But what I did know, and I've known this for a long time, is that I can't pass up a good challenge. I was one of those kids that if there was an application for it, my mom was filling it out and I was doing it. Didn't matter what it was, from Boy Scouts to football to science camp. But what I found a love and a passion in is sports and all things competitive. And so I played all the sports growing up. I remember changing uniforms in the back of my mom's Ford Taurus, going from football to baseball to soccer all in one day. But what that really set me up for ultimately was, a mindset of just a competitive drive, wanting to do more. How do we find a challenge, overcome it, do it better, and just really have a lot of fun along the way. And so when I got into college, I didn't know what I wanted to study, but I knew I wanted to do something challenging. And so the options were kind of like med school or engineering, and med school takes too long. So let's be an engineer. Why not? So when I got into the workforce, I actually started my career in oil and gas, and I went to go work for an oil and gas company. And I was doing downhole completion tools design. So I was a manufacturing engineer. I was a product designer. And I spent about 8 years in this space before I got my first taste of the construction industry. But along that way, I came across this principle of third-party or outsourced engineering. And there was this concept or this idea that if you have your engineering done somewhere else, somewhere overseas where labor is less expensive, you can save a bunch of money and get things done faster because they work overnight compared to here in the States. And my personal experience was that was a very slow, it was clunky. It didn't necessarily save a bunch of money because you had to, basically buy more resources, and it took longer because you couldn't get an answer the same day. It was like, well, they work overnight, but if you have a question, then you've got to wait till their day starts again. So as I sort of developed my professional career and had the opportunity to lead engineering teams here stateside, got into the construction industry working for a wire and cable manufacturer back in 2017. And then COVID happened. And, I think we all sort of took a step back there in early 2020 of, what does this mean? Are we even going to make it out of here, right? And if we don't, then it really doesn't matter. But if we do, then we've got this new lease on life and a new opportunity to go do something with it. And it was kind of a combination of that, just a collection of some of my professional experiences, and call it the Holy Spirit was just leading me to, hey, this is the next thing. This is the next challenge. But when I decided I wanted to start my own company, I wanted to do it in a way that I didn't find a lot of other people doing it. And that was take something very dry, very technical, which is the engineering world, but do it in a way and serve the market in the sense that it was almost a service industry where we were focused on relationships, focused on communication, focused on doing something more than just crushing drawings and putting a stamp on it and sending it to someone to review and build from. And so that was kind of the culture that I wanted from the very beginning. And that's what led us to our mission statement today, which is creating engineering solutions to build better communities. We're not building better buildings. We're not having fun or making things really tall. It's about the end user. And that's really what we sell as our offering is a service, but as an experience and not just a technical, dry, very process focused, kind of almost commoditized relationship.
Nice. I love that. I love that, background and being able to stand out differently in the industry rather than just the regular old cookie cutter, like you said. And how does that translate over to the clients that you have now? Like, do they really appreciate that value that you're bringing?
Well, I can tell you that over 75% of our clients come back and give us repeat work. And the real number is probably higher than that when you think about the number of kind of like small residential remodel projects that we do. How many times is someone going to remodel, add an addition to their home where they need a structural engineer to come back and help? So, if we looked at just our commercial clients, that number is probably closer to 85 or 90%. They appreciate it. And it's more so than just all the reviews that we're able to get through various media sites. I mean, you can check us out on Google. We've got 25-star reviews or something like that. And I tell you what, nailing down an architect to write a kind review is sometimes easier said than done. But yeah, I mean, the clients appreciate it. It's a little bit of a mind shift, though. They're not used to it. Most engineering firms operate in the sense that you get a project manager or an account manager, and the client talks to their salesperson. Their salesperson talks to the engineer's project manager, and that project manager goes back to the engineer of the engineering firm, and then it goes back and forth up and down that ladder. And it's just not an efficient way to do it. But getting people out of that mindset and realizing, like, hey, principal architect, if you have a question, pick up the phone and call the engineer directly. And I think some of it is just the culture and the history of that's not the way that this industry typically functions. But I think a lot of it comes back to nobody really wants to pick up the phone and call and talk to an engineer. It's either going to be a dry conversation or a difficult one, or the engineer is just going to dig their heels in and nope, that's what I put. That's what you got to go build. And not to say that everybody is like that, but I think historically and stereotypically, that's the way that engineers communicate. They're very matter of fact. They're very technically focused, and it's the creativity and the relationship building and like, okay, well, let me actually listen. Let me think about what you have to say. And, in anything engineering, there's more than at least two ways to do something. But yeah, it's very well received. And then once we can get our clients kind of into that groove of, look, if you have a question, pick up the phone and call the engineer, address it with them directly. They have all the authority and the power in the world to send revisions back directly. Again, and part of that is because our engineers are here. They're local, they're USA based. They are the engineer of record. The person stamping that drawing is the person you can always pick up and call. And when people get into that groove, they really start seeing how efficient that is and how quickly it can move projects forward.
Yeah, I love that. It's making that kind of impact to be able to have that repeat business and people to value that relationship with you and the team is really heavily important. And then getting those reviews, is also essential for your business too, as well. Like you said, trying to get architect guys to leave you a review, it can be challenging sometimes, but they appreciate the work that you do. But uh, how does with the relationships that you do have, how does that affect your business? Not only having them be repeat customers, but do you rely heavily on that word of mouth that they may spread it around, or do you have a different approach also too when it comes to sales or even marketing?
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, the answer is all of the above. With anything, it's construction industry. You can be selling tennis shoes. You can be building rocket ships. I mean, the word of mouth, that is everything. It's a referral is the best. They kind of say imitation is the best form of flattery, but I would say honestly, a referral is the best form of flattery. There's no better compliment than we can receive than someone, especially when architects or general contractors refer to other industry partners. Over 25% of our work is from referrals, and we know that a lot of times architects may be hesitant to refer work because, well, they want all the work. But just like us, we know that every architect doesn't do all projects. It could be different sizes, it could be different industries. It could just be, hey, look, I'm busy, but we all know other engineers. I know tons of other MEP firms, structural firms, aquatics engineering firms. If I have a client or someone who's needing something, I would rather give it to a friend of mine than just say, well, sorry, can't help you, good luck, because that's not the way we do business. And so a lot of times these architects, or general contractors or developers even, they'll get a phone call that they either can't handle because it's not up their wheelhouse. Maybe they don't do high-end luxury residential, or maybe they don't do restaurants, or maybe they don't do tenant finish out, whatever the situation may be. For them to make referrals to their other industry partners, I mean, obviously AIA and Design Build America, I mean, all these really great organizations, you meet other people. And so for architects to bring us into industry events, to have happy hours at their offices or wherever it may be, where there are other people in the space that we can work with, and to purposely go out and make that introduction to us, that's the gold mine. But we do it the way that we do business. Obviously, it's better to serve our clients, but it's really nice because then as we're serving clients, as we're getting these referrals, as we're getting these great reviews, we're also gathering a lot of really good case studies and a lot of really good data. And we can take that and we turn that and we spin that back into more marketing information, whether it be Google ads or LinkedIn ads or just various social media posts on different platforms. We create case studies and we can dive into a lot of that different stuff. But essentially, as we do the things we say we're going to do, like, look, our turnaround is 67% faster than anyone else in the industry on average. Well, okay, that's great, but can you prove it? Yeah, pick one of these case studies and we can talk about it and we can show those. So we take our projects and we take our project successes and we turn that into tangible data and physical copies of information that we can provide through either marketing campaigns, trade shows, people we meet electronically on emails for the first time. Being able to quickly follow that stuff up, back up what we say in these intro calls is a really powerful product as well.
Yeah, that's really great insight on the relationships that you developed and built, and been able to leverage those relationships to be able to help the business out, help yourself out. And as you mentioned, being able also to gather up those case studies. Can we dig into that a little bit more and share one or two successful case studies?
Yeah, absolutely. This was a really awesome one. It was, I can tell you what, it was probably about 3 years ago. It was right after my son was born. I remember sitting in the hospital. He's asleep, my wife is asleep, and it's like, all right, I've got a few minutes. Let's check a couple emails here because don't have time to sleep for that. And I had an email pop up, and it was a guy that he was very clearly up against the wall. He was trying to open a kind of an urgent care healthcare clinic here locally, and had some issues with some other design partners, had some issues with the permitting office. He was kind of up against the wall with his landlord. He was basically like, look, if I don't get these drawings issued and out by the end of the month or by the first of the month, I'm going to get billed, a penalty because I'm not able to move into my space. And he essentially had 72 hours to get a set of drawings done on the MEP side to open an urgent care clinic. And that doesn't happen, right? That's not our industry. Typically 2 to 3 weeks is a fast turn on something like that. 3 to 4 weeks is probably something more common. And he was like, look, I've called every engineering firm in the city. And I was like, should have started with us. So we talked about it, and we moved some things around internally, and we do a couple of things different operationally. We're not a massive firm, right? I don't have 1,000 employees, 1,000 engineers, where we're not able to be flexible. Sometimes the more people you get, the less flexible you're actually able to be. And we do a really good job of employing both W-2 and 1099, again, licensed professional engineers, to help in cases like this where we need some additional flexibility. And essentially what we did in 48 hours, I kind of moved some resources, had a couple people work sort of a night shift-ish, just to kind of get this out the door. But essentially in 48 hours, we turned around a permit-ready set for this urgent care clinic. It went through permitting the first time. We have over an 80% first-time success rate or acceptance rate at the permitting office. And he essentially was able to save a month of rent, move in on time, or at least get hammers swinging on time where he was able to meet the contractual obligations of his lease. And, essentially kind of saved the day. I mean, he would have been, several, I forget the number of thousands, several thousand at least, maybe tens of thousands of dollars in, late fees and penalties and leases, and not to mention just the operational costs of him not being able to open his clinic. And then it goes back to the building better communities too, right? So it's like these urgent care places, it's not just for the owner, it's not just for the doctor, it's not just for the landlord, but it's all the people that are sick or hurt or need help. And the faster you can get that stuff turned around, the more it helps the community too. And we always try to remind our folks internally, like there's always one step more at least on these projects that we look at, where again, you're not just helping the architect, you're not just helping the developer, but think about all the families that are going to be moving into this apartment complex. 10 families in a duplex subdivision, 100 families, 350 families in some of these larger apartment complexes. But anyway, so to kind of tie up the ends on the case study, that was one example where we took a phone call. It wasn't going to be easy, but I was like, you know what, this is what we're here to do today. This is the opportunity. He's not had any luck. Everyone has basically laughed him out of the room and said, look, I'm not even going to quote this because it's not possible. And we made it possible. And again, we don't do that every day, day in and day out. We're not always able to turn around those 48-hour relatively complex projects, but we always say, hey, look, let's look at it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's actually feasible. And we're not going to say no just because you're asking something difficult. We're going to have those communications. We're going to build those relationships for the future. And a little over 3 years ago, he still calls me today and says, hey, I've got this other little project, or I've got this buddy of mine that needs some help, or I was thinking about doing this to my space. What do you think it would take to get this done? And we still maintain that relationship, like I said, a little over 3 years later.
Nice. That's a really great case study. That's a really good example of providing value and turning something in from the beginning into a winning solution at the end. That's great.
Yeah, and another one, if I can share it, is actually kind of a cool story how we got started with our aquatics division. And again, it goes back to serving our communities and just other ways that you can kind of get the name out there for the company. And that wasn't necessarily what I intended to do with this specific instance, but I received this really interesting LinkedIn message. And it was a young lady at a local high school. I think she was probably 16 years old. She was a junior in high school. And she messaged me and said, hey, I'm reaching out to professionals in the industry. I have this class where as part of our requirements, we need to interview 5 people who have a job or a career in a field that we're interested in studying. And she said, I'm pretty sure that I want to be a mechanical engineer when I grow up. Said, how many 16-year-old girls? And she said, would you mind if I interview you? And I was like, absolutely. How much time do you need? So we had this really great call. It was probably 45 minutes or an hour or so. And she thanked me. She was very kind. And then about 2 weeks later, she followed up and said, hey, well, I interviewed 5 people and I felt like I had the best connection with you. And, really what I need for next steps is a mentor to follow me along this year-long curriculum and help me develop in like an independent, mentor guided sort of a project, if you will, kind of an independent study program. And at the end of the year, I give a formal presentation to my colleagues and parents and faculty. And I need a mentor along the way. And how could I sign up fast enough? And so we went through this really long program, incredibly brilliant. She's now a sophomore at the University of Texas, and she's doing phenomenally well. But at the end of this program, I finally had the opportunity to meet her parents. And she had told her folks about me and about our company, everything along the way, that we were an MEP firm. We were just doing MEP and structural at the time. And when I finally got the opportunity to meet her dad, he said, hey, just out of curiosity, have you guys ever done any swimming pool engineering? And we hadn't. And, was kind of thinking like, well, it's very structural related. It's very MEP related, at least on plumbing systems and equipment specifications. And there's some electrical that goes into it. And I said, well, we haven't, but I'm sure we could probably figure something out. And turns out that he was one of the larger commercial swimming pool contractors here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And he told me that he was losing 40% of his jobs because he couldn't get engineering drawings back enough. He was generally 8 to 10 and sometimes 12 weeks on getting engineering drawings turned around. And this industry can't function in that way. Everything's better done yesterday, but nobody has 3 months to wait on drawings for a 2,000 square foot hotel swimming pool. And so what we did was, we kind of went back out to our network. We found some people willing to consult for us. And we were kind of worked together with the client. And we turned the first project around in about 3 or 4 weeks. And he said, hey, that was awesome. Let's do this again. Let's see if we can get you guys really rolling on this. Well, the next project we did in about 3 weeks. And the next project we did in about 3 weeks. And he said, hey, listen, if you can keep this up, I will give you 100% of my business. He said, I'll tell everybody on my staff, you're not to call anybody else. This is your engineering firm, as long as you can keep this work up. And we said, okay, well, you know what? This is going to be a great opportunity for us. It was a great learning opportunity. We went and we found the resources to bring in to be able to support the growth of not only the company, but of this client. And now the aquatics division is a third of our company. And so we talk about ways to get out there and ways to market and ways to advertise. And sometimes it's not just where do I buy ads or can I come up with a clever slogan? A lot of times things come out of, selfless action. And again, not that I had intended on ever securing any business by mentoring this really bright young lady through her junior year of high school. But information again about getting the company out there, word of mouth, having people talk about it. And sometimes it's a colleague and sometimes it's someone's dad. I just had a text message last night at 8 o'clock. Someone said, hey, my dad has been in the industry and he's been retired for a while, but he's got this side project and, I'm going to send him to you. And this was not a 16-year-old high school student. This was a 35 or 40-year-old man who had been in the industry for a while. But anyway, that was kind of the segue into the aquatics industry for us. And now being a third of our business could not have been a better decision than to say yes to this young lady on LinkedIn.
That's amazing.
It's a cool story.
That's a really cool story. Wow. Like who would have ever thought?
Yeah, certainly not me. And I tell people that, and we get calls from other commercial contractors or pool contractors, landscape architects, and they're like, yeah, there's really not a lot of aquatics engineering firms. Like, how did you get into this? And I tell them that story, and they're like, there's no way that's true. Like you, yeah, but it's very true, and it's a cool story, and we're very blessed to have this opportunity to continue to serve people, to continue to grow. And again, it's about saying yes. It's about stepping outside of your comfort zone. I like to say that you don't get better and you don't improve by doing the same thing. You don't get better by being comfortable. You get better by being uncomfortable, by purposely stepping out of your comfort zone, by finding new challenges. And that's really how we've grown all along the way, right? It's been going from structural to MEP to aquatics. It's all relatively industry adjacent stuff. And the aquatics at face value may seem like, well, that's not related, but think about any sort of new hospitality, any sort of new multifamily. A lot of the larger residential communities, even these days, are having these massive amenity centers where people like to swim. Pretty much everywhere in the South, and it's certainly here in Texas, and we're 19 states across the nation, but here in our home state of Texas, everything has a swimming pool. People have swimming pools in their backyard and walk across the street and there's a community swimming pool. So having that ability to tie in all of the primary building engineering features, again, the MEP, the aquatics, and the structural, makes for a great value add when we can do it all faster, we can do it all coordinated. We have the same teams all in-house. It just makes things run really smoothly. It wasn't easy. We certainly had to learn a lot. I'm still learning a lot today. We've only been doing the aquatics engineering for, I guess, maybe right at 2 years now. And so there's always new things to learn. There's new projects, new technology, but it's the lifelong learning. And like I say, It's finding new challenges, finding ways to make ourselves uncomfortable, because that's where we grow. And I'm a firm believer in never living the same day twice. And that kind of ties back to how do we continue to challenge ourselves? How do we continue to make ourselves better? And you don't get better by doing the same thing. And by doing things differently, trying new things, you don't fail. You just find a way to do something differently. You find new ways to try, whether it be marketing or engineering or construction or design, or how to tie your tennis shoes, right? Again, I've got a 3-year-old at home and we're working on that. So we're not failing. We're just finding ways to do things better.
No, I really appreciate that, and it's a journey along the way, right?
Absolutely.
It's definitely a learning process on both ends. And speaking of that journey, could you let us know what was one or two of the biggest challenges you had when trying to scale the business and how you overcame it?
Yeah, absolutely. Staffing it's easy to find an engineer, right? Engineers are, I don't want to say easy to find, but it's really easy to narrow down your field because you look for people with a professional engineering license. That exam has about a 50% pass rate. It's similar to someone who gets a CPA or really any kind of professional certification. It's an 8-hour test, and you sit down and kind of test you what you know. So getting the general competency is not hard to find. Now for us, and I mentioned it earlier, having that extra factor where our engineers are required to be client facing. They, in many cases, serve as their own account managers, at least on a project by project basis. Certainly, they're their own project managers. They're setting up meetings with clients. They're following up. They're responding to emails. It doesn't come through me. It doesn't come through another project manager. Finding engineers with that mindset and that ability to communicate, the ability to not just articulate a technical concept, but to listen, receive information, digest it, and then have a conversation with somebody who may not be technical and explain something technical in a way that you're not just talking at them, you're talking with them. And so that has been a challenge for us. We struggle a little bit to ramp up our internal resources because the expectations and the standards are so high. We're at a point now we can't just take, I say, any professional engineer off the street and assign them to projects because we do things a little bit differently. And our expectations are that these engineers will have good conversations with clients. And kind of the way that I frame that, whether it be for our recruiters or during interviews that we're having ourselves, is I say, listen, if I have a client dinner, for say, and something comes up and I'm not able to attend, I need to be able to take you as an engineer, Mr. or Mrs. Engineer, and have you go sit in my place in this client dinner. And when that dinner is done, that client needs to call me and say, I have never had a better conversation with an engineer in my life. And sometimes that's not hard to do because generally conversations with engineers are pretty dry. But the concept of having an engineer have almost that like business development mindset has been kind of challenging. And some of the things that we do is we do incentivize as part of our compensation package where we give engineers commission on projects that they go and they find and source. I kind of talk about that getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of your shell. And we try to do as much as we can up front, vetting engineers that we believe have that kind of it factor, if you will, of having those extra soft skill sets. But incentivizing them to do that more, again, that's where we grow. We go through challenge. We go through things that we're not necessarily good or super comfortable at. So sending engineers to networking events, to industry events, to happy hours, you don't typically see a lot of professional engineers at those events. But when we send our engineers out there, they're struggling, they're being challenged, they're growing, and that ultimately makes them better at their job because they gain pieces of information, they gain insight, and they gain stories from other people that can effectively make them better in their job, whether it be on a project basis or whether it be an overall basis, just general communication within the teams. If you can communicate with a client, you can certainly communicate with another engineer. And so that's kind of how we've overcome some of that is like, once we get people in, we really push on the professional development side, not just from the required 15 hours of continuing education to keep a professional engineering license, but through some more soft skill professional development where we're continuing to push our folks to be better in those avenues too.
I love that. I really love that, being able to have that process and, really expecting, good things, right? Having great feedback. If you can't attend and someone's having an excellent conversation, they're, really representing the business well. And that's important for growth too. Like you can't be everywhere at every time and every sort
Certainly.
every date. So, having someone to really truly represent the company is important.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just having an account manager or a business development person. That's one part of our company we're probably looking to really scale up next is like the true business development function. But we've been able to kind of avoid that for so long because our engineers do support in that function. And between 4 or 5 engineers, if each one is doing a handful of hours a week of business development, well, that's almost like having a full-time business development person, right? And so that's been a really cool way that we've grown. And again, it sort of ties back to the relationship building. It's better communication, and it's not communication just for the sake of doing it, but all of these little spider webs, all these little pieces are kind of intricately weaved together, and it just makes for a better overall experience. Which at the end of the day is we get a project, we produce engineering drawings, the engineering drawings get utilized in construction, right? That's the 80,000 foot view of what we do, but the way we do it is very purposeful, is very meticulous, and there's a reason behind the way we do things because we see that the focus on communication, the focus on relationships, it builds all aspects of the business. It makes projects go more smoothly. It builds better trust with our clients. It gives us targets internally to set, which are at a higher standard. Then we take those KPIs and we turn them into marketing copy, which then in turn gives us better exposure in the industry, which gives people more of an opportunity to find us. And then you kind of go through this wonderful little circle. And you've got to always you always got to keep the pedal down because the same case study that was relevant 3 years ago, it's still relevant today. But in the marketing and the SEO world, and now that AI has kind of become its own thing, right? It's more and more people are utilizing AI to do their internet searching than they are just going to their web browser, Google, for example. So that's kind of been an interesting thing. It's like, well, now we've got SEO, but now how does AI interact with SEO and the different Google searches? And we actually got our first phone call the other day that when I asked, hey, how did you find us? They said, oh, I just went into ChatGPT and I typed in, I need an engineering firm to do XYZ, and your name came up. And I was like, I don't even know how that works, but it's really cool. It's definitely something that we're learning. We're trying to focus on and figure out like, well, we understand what SEO is. And again, it goes back to constantly having new content to put out there. It's the new case studies. It's staying at the top of mind of not only our clients, but the top of mind of these search engines. But then now, how do we evolve that to interact with different language models to make sure we're staying at the top of their mind too? So it all stays tied together. It's kind of this not really a perpetual motion machine, but one does definitely influence the next, and it all kind of circles back around.
Yeah, I really love that. Like staying top of mind, really thinking about it's so many different ways for now people to find you, and to reach out to you is uh technology, search engines plays a role, but search engines are getting assistance from, these, AI chat GBTs, and they're able to search up and find your business. And same thing happened to us, and someone came to us and said, "Oh, no, we found you through Chat GBT." And it's like, "Oh, wow, this is good." Like you need to hear of it, but like when it actually happens to you, you're like, "This is influencing people's decisions."
It is. And what's interesting is that, these language models, these GPTs, they're not just going to Google, but they're going to Google and Bing and Firefox and, all these different search engines search in different ways. And these language models are searching all of those at the same time. So our marketing material and our SEO and the way that we try to stay in this connected Internet of Things almost, if you will. It's the Alexas and the Google Homes and all these other technology features. It's all so interconnected. And so staying on top of not just the top of the Google search list, but the top of the Bing search list and the top of all these other search providers, those are great. But then now the AI aspect of it is searching all of those at the same time. So, if you're at the top of Google, but you're not at the top of Bing, um, you may get missed by AI. And so it's like, well, people know that the vast majority of, call it 2 years ago, I forget what the number was. It was 70 or 80 or 85% of all searches go through Google. Well, you're missing a lot of traffic now because AI looks at all of the different aspects. Um, and that's been something really interesting that we're trying to figure out. How do we convince ChatGPT or Grok 4 or any of these other models, Claude or any of them? How do we teach them at the global level to come find us now? And a lot of that, again, it ties back into Google campaign ads or any of the paid ads. Like that keeps you kind of at the top of search lists with the language models or the AI models will go and find. But it's all interconnected, and there's always all of the work that you spent doing SEO. Now you've got to do all of that work again, not again, but in addition to try to massage these different AI models and continue to stay at the forefront of what they're continuing to research.
Yeah, it's all about staying in the forefront, getting ahead, and staying and keeping up with it because, if you don't keep up with it, your competitors are definitely keep up with it.
That's right.
You'll be left out in the dark. So it's something that you definitely want to pay attention to so that it can expand your business.
Yeah, an old football coach told me one time, look, if you aren't getting better, you're getting worse. And we all kind of looked at him like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Um, and the reason why is because, just like you said, David, your competitors are. Someone out there is getting better. And so if you're not getting better to at least keep up, then you're falling behind. And that's true in sports, it's true in business, it's true in personal relationships, it's true in spiritual relationships. Stagnation is the enemy of everything. And you don't have to get exponentially better every day. But there's kind of that old adage of 1% better every day or a tenth of a percent better every day. Just keep the needle moving. Dangle that carrot in front, right? Be chasing that carrot or carrot cake if that's more your your flavor. But yeah, it's always finding ways to get better. It's about being creative. We don't talk about engineers generally being creative. But as someone running a firm, we have to be creative because someone else is coming up with something. And how do we use some of these new tools, AI, not just to have people find us, but how do we kind of pick its brain on like, all right, well, how can I be more creative in whether it be marketing or engineering or relationships or what are some things that I'm not even thinking about, right? And so we can prompt these different AI models. You can tell it everything about you. Here's my business model. Here's the clients that I'm going after. Here's what I want to try to achieve. Here are my personal goals, my financial goals, my project goals, operational, whatever. Um, and you can even prompt it and say like, look, ask me questions about myself, ask me questions about my business. And then as it starts to learn you, quote unquote, which some people may find a little bit terrifying, but then you can say like, all right, well, tell me something I don't know about myself, or challenge me, or give me a creative idea that I may have never thought of before. And you can actually have conversations with these AI models that really can stretch and push your thought processes and the limits of things that you may not have considered before. And it's not always gold, right? Everything you type in, everything it gives you back. I mean, sometimes it comes up with stuff that's completely out in left field and wouldn't necessarily work. But very frequently, it comes up with ideas. You're like, you know what? Maybe we should consider that. And it's really cool to see that work and function in a lot of different aspects of our business.
Yeah, I really love the fact that things are is evolving daily, right? So you have to keep up.
Absolutely.
But it's just more exposure, it's more opportunity for people to find you, for your business to be able to grow.
Hmm. Yeah, it is, and that's what it's all about. And Sales is everything. It doesn't matter if you're selling engineering, you're selling architecture, you're selling construction services, you're selling tennis shoes or macaroons or Tiffany necklaces. It's all sales. You can be the best engineer in the world. You can be the best general contractor. You can be the best marketing consultant. But if people can't find you, it doesn't matter how good you are. And word of mouth does start to gain traction over time. And there's a lot of people that have had a lot of success over the years, and now they do have this really nice kind of churning regular business of a referral base. But in the early years of a company, I mean, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, even, you've got to sell. And if you don't, and if you aren't selling your company, if you're not selling yourself as an individual who can be value added, again, it's not just what are the services we can sell as Ultimus Engineering. It's what are the services our engineers can sell to a client. And not just why is Ultimus the best, but why am I the best engineer at Ultimus to serve you, customer, because I'm the engineer for your project and I want you to request me as an engineer. So there's all kinds of creative ways that we can look at sales, but companies generally don't fail because they don't have a good product. Companies generally don't fail because they're bad at customer service, or they're rude to clients, or they're not really, really good at whatever their trade is that motivated them to start a company. Generally, companies fail because they run out of business, right? It's all cash flow, it's all money. And how do we generate more cash flow? How do we generate more money? Well, it's through the sales and marketing process. And so irrespective of your industry or the product or whatever it is that you're selling or offering, it does come back to how do we articulate what our value proposition is and why is that better than anybody else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is your value proposition? Like you said, what is making you uniquely different and standing out from your competitors?
There's an old adage that you have the options of better, faster, less expensive, and you can only pick 2 out of 3. Well, I don't believe in that. And aside from the fact that just the faster aspect, which I already talked about, we on average do things 67% faster than the industry. But doing things better is a way of better communication, better relationship building, and better service. We like to consider ourselves a service company just as much as we are an engineering firm. And having those relationships formed between engineers, architects, general contractors, developers, that creates better relationships, better communication, and better project deliverables at the end of the day. And then it's also better conversations when something does go sideways. Invariably, it does. Something gets missed at some level. You have a disagreement, but if you form these better relationships up front, in the honeymoon stages when things are good, once you get to things that do present a challenge, whatever that challenge may be, you're able to handle those. And then the less expensive thing is, quite frankly, that just comes down to greed on a project. I mentioned earlier, I've got a 3-year-old at home and another one on the way, and as long as I can put new shoes on my kiddos and make sure they've got healthy food to eat, we don't need anything else as a family. I'm more focused on how do I support the growing families of our employees? How do we support our clients? Everybody's cost conscious. And when we work on projects, everybody needs to support themselves, support their families, support their loved ones at the end of the day. And to give away a couple margin points when we know that everything is taken care of, we're not just going to dig our heels in for principle's sake. There's always going to be another opportunity to make a few more dollars on the next project. Not to say that we're a charity case, but we do a lot of pro bono work. We have a couple of nonprofits that we work with, just phenomenal causes. And I think that giving back, again, our mission statement being about building better communities, kind of sums all that up. You can't build better communities when the only thing you're worried about is the bottom dollar. We've got to have enough to keep the company running. We've got to have enough to support our employees. But other than that, the money that we do make at the end of the day just gets funneled back into the company for more marketing dollars, better resources for our engineers. How do we do more and better team building and how do we grow the organization to turn that back into better supporting our clients and our community. So yeah, there's three disciplines of better, faster, and less expensive. I feel like we do all of those. We offer all of those to our clients. And that's just a mind shift that the engineering industry has not caught on to yet across the board.
Yeah, I love that. Being able to give back, make a difference, and to be able to care truly about the community, your employees, the team, is all very important, right? It's about developing those relationships and working together, to be able to work toward our common cause of communities getting better, people able to support their families. It's, all really great to be able to have that at the top of mind instead of always thinking about the bottom dollar.
Yeah, and one of the missions that we support, there's an organization called Hugs Cafe, Hugs like Hugs, Hugs Cafe, and they started here in the North DFW in the city of McKinney. They're opening a second location down in Dallas, and they're talking about opening several locations across the United States. But their mission is that in their restaurants, they employ adults with special needs. And that's such a difficult position to be in as an individual. It's hard to find work. It's hard to find the training and the resources to support yourself. Just to have a sense of purpose in life really is what it's about. And so this community this organization, from the second you walk in the door, the host or hostess at the stand, the wait staff, the kitchen staff, the bus staff, everybody that works in this restaurant has some varying degree of special needs. And I met their executive director probably 4 or 5 years ago now at a leadership, it's called Leadership McKinney. It's a community-based leadership year-long program where they take different leaders from the community, and they take them through this year-long curriculum. But I had met their executive director there. And then when I started this company, she reached back out and said, "Hey, we've got this project. We need some engineering. I know you're an engineer. Can you help us?" And it's just blossomed into this really great relationship where they have an annual gala that we have a table at, and we support. Our engineers look forward to that every year, and it's just a really cool opportunity to be in a room with just some of the most unbelievable people on the planet. And not just their executive staff, but I'm talking about the people, the adults that work in this cafe. And as they're continuing to grow, they're opening a training kitchen where they can reach out to more than just the staff that work in the cafe, but they can bring in adults with needs from all over the community and set them up to go work for places like Hilton, various service models. So pretty much hospitality, anything across the board. We're setting these adults up who would never be given a chance otherwise. Now we're giving them the skill set to get back out into the community. And that's been one of the most fruitful, albeit not financially, but just personally and spiritually and just mentally fruitful relationships that we've had. And our engineers love working on that project with them. So big shout out to Hugs Cafe. Would encourage anyone to look them up. If you're here local to the DFW, or if you happen to be cruising on through, head up to McKinney, go get a really awesome sandwich or soup. They've got a really good menu, but great organization. We're super happy to support them.
Awesome. Definitely check them out. That's a great initiative. It's great to be able to hear. And yeah, we appreciate just being able to have that at the top of mind. That's excellent.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know that you have a conference coming up. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our next conference coming up is the International Pool Expo, and that is going to be held in Vegas here at the end of October. And it's a really great opportunity for contractors, developers, people of the industry. A lot of these general contractors, they do things more than just build swimming pools. I can't remember how many tens of thousands of people attend it, but I think there's like over 500 or 600 exhibitors that are coming to this show. It is October 22nd through the 24th. Maybe it's the 21st or the 24th, in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Convention Center. We've got a booth there, And we just invite all of our aquatics industry friends and anyone interested. You see some really cool stuff, from hot tubs to different aquatic features. People obviously selling products and different things directly related to the aquatics industry. They have a lot of training opportunities. Water University is going to be there. So it's really good for professional development and education. But again, our mission is we're going to get out there and we're going to talk about how we do things faster in the industry. How we saved our first aquatics client, essentially 40% of their projects, which you can imagine is a pretty good number on a commercial swimming pool. 40% of their projects now, and they basically win. I don't want to say everything they quote because there's always some other things, but at least they're not losing projects based on engineering lead times. But yeah, we've got myself, our principal aquatics designer, and our chief marketing officer are all going to be out there at the show, at the International Pool Show in Vegas at the end of October.
That's excellent. That's really great to be able to know that you're, taking advantage, going to the conference. If you're going to be going to Vegas, make sure you check them out. And it's a good time of year to go to Vegas. Nice weather and some good eats too as well.
It's going to be beautiful. Yeah, if you're looking for a good place to eat, it's hard to beat the Vegas Strip.
Excellent, excellent. So one of the few last things we wanted to touch on too, what are the upcoming plans and goals for the next year or so?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for us is, how do we get out to more of these trade shows? That's kind of one of the newer things. We've done a handful this year. There's a Dallas, it's called the Build Expo. They have them all over the country, but we exhibited that this year, and that's a really great event. The International Pool Show is once a year. It's all places, actually in Dallas last year, which is super convenient for us. But that bounces around. But the Build Expo is another really good one. And they have those all over the country pretty much year round. It rotates. So be on the lookout for that. It's a really great, very well attended event. Get everything from general contractors to other design professionals, people with various products, tools, services, kind of just very, very industry broad. So the Build Expo is another really good one. But we're looking to expand into that more. And as I mentioned, we're going to be growing the internal business development team a little bit more and just be able to get some more boots on the ground. How do we get that face-to-face conversation? And that's a really great way to meet hundreds or thousands and tens of thousands potentially of people at some of these various trade shows. So we'll be expanding and hitting those, everything from Atlantic City to Southern California and everything in between. That'll be a big push for us going into 26 is how do we get out there to some more of these trade shows and continue to spread the word and get in front of a lot of people at one time.
Excellent, excellent. It's nice to be able to see that you have those initiatives and goals coming up, and we definitely hope that you're able to expound on those.
Yeah, thanks, David.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so if anybody was trying to reach out, where can they find you at?
Yeah, for sure. We are on social media. So we're on LinkedIn. We have an Instagram and a Facebook account, but LinkedIn, Ultimus Engineering, you can find us there. Our website is ultimus.engineering or ultimusengineering.com. Either one will take you to the same place. You can reach us by phone, 972-825-7741. Or you can reach out via email, and that's info at ultimusengineering.com. And if you really wanted to get personal, you can always find me directly. It's my first initial last name. So D McCaulley at ultimusengineering.com. And I'd love to hear from you directly.
All right. Excellent. We appreciate it. And thanks so much for the value you provided this episode.
It's been a pleasure, David. Excited to see you and your podcast and your organization continue to grow. And I'm sure we'll be seeing you around.
All right. Excellent. Well, everyone, thanks for listening into this episode. Make sure you tune into the next one. Until next time.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Blueprint Boost for Contractors. We hope you found today's insights and strategies valuable for your contracting business. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and please leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring content that truly matters.